I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zeiss Palmer.
And this is an Arcane Mark special exclusive.
Hi, everybody. And hello and welcome, Steven. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm very excited. Of all the shows I've ever wanted to go on, and I've been on a lot, but Arcane Mark was at the top of my list. You're like my favorite show. I watch it every week. As you know, I love the show.
Yeah, I mean, you've said that you like to watch Arcane Mark, but you usually don't watch these kind of sort of little RPG news slash advice slash workshop live stream. So it's very nice.
Well, because you actually know exactly what you're talking about because you write it. So coming from you, it's basically coming from God.
Sometimes I do get the sense that people feel that way about some of the books we put out, that it's like a sacred text. But
the light shines down in the perfection of the written word. And
yes, but we are mere mortals.
I can't even get through that sentence. There's no such thing as a perfect book, and there never will be.
Oh, yeah, no.
So, whenever we've had folks on this show in the past, we've had titles below their name that represent what they do at Paizo. But you are not a Paizo employee, so right below your name, Steven, is Roll for Combat. So can you let folks know who may not be familiar with it, what is Roll for Combat?
So Roll for Combat is a podcast, an actual play podcast that basically plays Pathfinder and Starfinder. And we've been doing it for almost 4 years. This Gen Con will be a 4-year anniversary because we started with the birth of Starfinder. And we did Dead Sons. That was our first podcast. And then eventually we branched out and we did Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society. And right now we are doing Three Ring Adventure, which is Extinction Curse. And we are also doing Agents of Edgewatch. So now we have 2 active podcasts that we do. We're also doing Malevolent, or Malevolence. I always get them confused because of the damn movie. And we're doing that one too, but that one's in secret. That one is only available right now to patrons, but eventually that will be public. And oh, I forgot the most popular one of all time, which we did was The Fall of Plaguestone, and that one was by far our most popular one. And this is actually a sequel to The Fall of Plaguestone. We took the same characters, and so that's what we're doing. The other thing is that we have a very popular Discord channel. We were actually the first Discord lodge ever for Paizo. So we run a million games, Pathfinder, Starfinder, even non-society games. Those are pretty rare, but we run a lot of society games on Discord, which I liked a lot more than play by post, just because you can put audio, video. It was a little bit faster than play by post, so that's why I started it, and then it became a lodge. And we're also a Paizo partner, which means that we just get to talk to people at Paizo more often, like you two. So that is the long and the short of it. And you can find out more at rollforcombat.com. How about that?
Roll, spelled exactly as you would think. Rollforcombat.com. Putting that right there in the chat.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
So for today's interview, it's going to be a little bit different because, as it turns out, this new product, Battlezoo Bestiary, one of the authors who wrote a particular section, the monster part section that we're going to be talking about, is me. So Linda is kind of going to be interviewing me and Steven.
That is true.
We worked together on that section, and then RPG Superstar authors wrote all of the monsters. Patrick Rini from Paizo, who's one of the 2 Adventure Path developers, developed them all. And so
let's talk a bit about what RPG Superstar is. So I'd like to start with Mark, if you can talk a bit about the history of RPG Superstar, and then I'd like to turn it over to Steven to talk about what this last round was like.
Sure.
And how this book came to be.
So in the past, RPG Superstar has been a contest run by Paizo, where some very large number of people would submit an entry, which was usually the entry was a wondrous item. Then a number of judges, and eventually an algorithm where people on the Paizo.com community could filter, and then the judges could look at ones that were generally more popular, made some decisions to pull out a top 32, and then each round, half of those top 32 got eliminated, having a new and varied challenge thrown in front of them. And at the end, after they proved that they could write often like a wondrous item, a monster, maybe an archetype, an encounter, things like that, then they one person won a grand prize where they wrote an adventure, which may or may not have been the type of product that exactly showcased their strongest round during the competition. Maybe their strongest thing was monster and item creation, but nonetheless, that's sort of how the contest went in the past. And I've been a judge on it before. At one point, in fact, one year we had the people on Paizo.com who helped winnow to the top items, but I was actually at Linda's family's house, and I had a small cold, so I was sort of exiled into a room away from everybody else with my computer and the RPG Superstar items. And I looked through all of the items that existed and found a few that were not in the very, very top from the suggestions from the website, one of which went on to be the eventual winner that year. So if I hadn't caught a cold, then we might have had a different winner that year for RPG Superstar. But I feel like when Paizo was unable to do it anymore, that what Steven has done with it this year is super cool. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, Steven, tell us a bit about the RPG Superstar contest that you ran.
So every time I would go to a convention and I would, sit in an audience with the Paizo, someone would always mention every single time, when are you bringing back the RPG Superstar contest? Every single year. And it was something even I looked forward to, even if I didn't enter, just because it was just, it was just fun. It was something you would see. And there was always silence. And then I eventually saw Eric Mona at PAX in 2019. And I don't know, I had the idea. I'm like, wait, are you doing anything with RPG Superstar? Because if you're not, I'll take it and I'll run with it. I'll do something with it. And Eric thought it was okay. And we talked to Paizo and we talked to various people and they said, sure. And, me and Eric kind of worked it out as to what should work. And I also spoke to Owen Casey Stevens, who ran it for Paizo for many years. And I got him as a judge and a couple of other people like Patrick Rennie and Vanessa Hoskins and Param from No Direction. So we got a couple, people with a lot of knowledge. So we were trying to figure out the best way to do it, and we were like monsters because everyone needs monsters. I've written monsters for Paizo and Starfinder. It's a very good encapsulation of whether or not you can write because it's not too much, it's not too little, and it requires a lot of skills that are hard to translate. So we decided let's do monsters. We wrote up a website where you can actually enter in the monster and it does most of the calculations for you. And then people submitted them. And of course, originally I'm like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do like 32 monsters. Because one thing I didn't like about RPG Superstar is only one person won. And I really wanted like multiple winners. So I'm like, I'll do 32 winners. And then Eric Moen is like, Steve, you should make it at least a 160-page book if you're going to make a book. So you're going to need more than that. So I'm like, all right, let's make it 101 monsters. And we actually did more than that. It was 114 because the winners got to do more monsters based on their original entry. So yeah, we had several hundred entries and we went through them. I had a very advanced ranking system. And actually, I spoke to you too for ideas of how to even judge the monsters, if you remember. And I showed you the tool ahead of time. And we came up with some methods and some math. And so we ranked it in various ways. And we came up with a weighted system. So I tried to make it as fair as possible. So then the public voted on them afterwards. And then we ranked them. And there's winners from grand prize to platinum to gold, silver, and bronze. But to be honest, they're all really good. I mean, some of my favorites are copper. It's like copper isn't better, I'd say, than the gold ones or the platinum ones. The platinum ones are usually just a little bit more creative than you would. Like, they usually just did something like one is the Salt Stalker, and that is a monster that kills you by dehydration. And that was just something even Patrick and the Paizo people are like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like, that was so new, like that got high marks because it was something just so unique. Except I think Doctor Who, didn't they? Oh no, Star Trek. The original Star Trek had that,
Or
if you
the
remember.
horde
So,
wilting spell.
right, or right, but a monster that does it.
Right?
And then I needed more space because we professionally edited the monsters, and I only had 114, and you need more space when you're gonna do a 160-page book. So I spoke to Mark, and I was in Boston at the time when I was texting him, and I was like, Mark, I have this idea for the system where you take monsters and you turn them into anything. And you had an idea, and I had an idea, and right there we were like riffing off each other super fast. And you and I seem to work together extremely well. We like riff off each other very fast. So. I was coming up with the ideas, and then you would refine it and put it into the Pathfinder system, and you did the math, and then very quickly we figured it out, and then you wrote most of the system. I just sort of gave you like the nudge and the push, but you obviously did all the maths and all the hard parts and the charts. I'm just the one who says, you know what would be good? Let's add another system that does this. And you're like, fine. And then we just kept adding more, and now it's a 172-page book, and it has a lot more than just monsters in it. So,
Yeah.
and there you go.
I do want to take a quick sec to show off some of those monsters, though, because Stephen was
Of
generous
course.
enough to share with me some art that I can show off
It
here.
has some amazing art. Like,
So
you
here we
clearly
have.
spared no expense on getting some really top-notch artists for these monsters.
Yeah, so that was something else is that if I was going to do this, I was going to do this. Like, one thing, now this sounds a little strange, is that I actually don't trust third party books, which is weird for someone who's putting out a third party book, but I made sure that it was balanced. Like, one thing I don't like sometimes is that these books sometimes they just write and they don't think about it. That's why I got Patrick to make sure he went through every single monster and it had like the unofficial Paizo seal of approval. And I had Mark to make sure like all the math worked correctly. So I made sure that this would work perfectly with Pathfinder Second Edition, not just now, but in the future. And so also the artwork, the book is only as good as the monsters and is only as good as the artwork. And that's something I learned a long time ago, just in my day job. So I made sure that we got the best artists possible. And about half of them are Paizo artists, and some of them are new artists that I found. And then so yeah, if you look at these, I can't even pronounce some of these. The gyrophobia or
Yeah.
gyrophobia, whatever you the yeah, that one is. I'm gonna scroll to it in the book real quick. That one is actually fun because the worms are the. Oh, there it is. The worms are the actual monster,
Oh,
and the dead body is the outfit, the corpse it wears because it's really shy. So it actually like walks around inside of a corpse, and then that's it when it comes out of the corpse.
oh, like
Aw,
And
like
it's a shy, horrifying worm swarm.
like Ostavites
yes,
or those like demon siege towers from the World Wound that infest into bodies.
I wanted to
yeah,
juxtapose these two here: the genophobia and the gamayun, sort of the cute and friendly versus the like,
Yeah,
oh god,
right.
why of the bronze tier here. Plus the gamayun wound up featuring in one of our other Arcane Mark episodes where we were building a settlement that
It
just
was on the moon.
it was on the moon,
oh,
and it was
that's
perfect
right,
for
that's
pirates on the
right,
moon.
Yep,
that's right.
they weren't
This one was
whalers.
funny. Well, here's an example of, and I'm sure you've seen this happen many times, like the art kind of went in its own direction and told the
Mm,
story. Because this was just supposed to be like, okay, he's a parrot person, go. And then the person who did it decided to make him a pirate. He wasn't supposed to be a pirate. He was just supposed to be a parrot person, but the artist decided to make him a pirate. And that has spawned a lot of stories based on this one character. This one drawing has
mm-hmm.
really like lit a lot of imaginations, we will say, because he's going to be appearing a lot more in the Battlezoo Bestiary and other books in the Kickstarter. But yeah, they have this whole society of parrot people, and they don't have to be pirates. I actually have others of looks like a mage, and I have one that looks like a chef. So, but this one is, yeah, this one, here's an example. Like, I mean, the copper doesn't mean it's any lesser than,
Yeah.
the other ones.
I mean,
But yeah,
like
yeah, it's just a
what you
fun
did with
character.
them in the end, right? The rating initially was the rating that was given to exactly what was submitted by the freelancer.
Right,
But what's
right.
just so cool about this and this version of RPG Superstar that is like super, I think super great for the authors and the people who submitted is that they made it in if they were in that top 101, and then they got
Hmm.
Patrick to look through all of them and do a pass. So now,
Hmm.
like maybe the thing that made something a copper or silver, right, with like there was a few grammatical errors or something, right, and Patrick cleaned those up. So they're all looking great. The author's name is in every entry, front and center, so you can
Hmm.
see it. And I think that that's just such a cool thing for new authors who are just trying to get into
Hmm.
it, that they now are in this, like it's like such a passion project for you to get this. They've got this great
Hmm.
art, their name is just in there, right, in this big deluxe hardcover book.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that actually is exactly right. I forgot about that. Is that a lot of the ones that were scored lower mostly had to do with formatting. And that is something, even when I did my monsters, that like when I was working with Ron Lundeen, he was like, "Oh yeah, you like I put in like an amphibious attack or aquatic attack. I forgot the exact name, but even that, he's like, "Oh yeah, no one puts those in." Like that's like little things like that show that you know what you're doing. And it sounds so silly, but formatting your monsters correctly is a big, big deal because that was probably 70% of what Patrick was doing was he wasn't rewriting the monsters, he was just formatting them correctly and making sure that they had the right number of skills and the right number of high skills versus low skills because sometimes people were getting a little happy and like making everything high and it's like you can't have that many high, you got to bring them down. So a lot of that was just rebalancing and then even just formatting of using the correct verbiage and terminology. I don't need to tell you this, you do this for a living,
Well,
but
I find
you
that
know exactly what I'm talking about.
formatting can be really important too, because what you'll find is if things aren't organized in the expected way, then you might not realize that something has too many things. Like I'll often find it
Hmm.
in custom monsters. It's like, well, this thing's got two reactions and one thing that should really be a reaction, and like,
Right.
well, wait a minute, what's this thing doing with all of its actions and stuff like that? Because you want to make sure that the creature has enough options that it can do interesting stuff, but doesn't have more options that it will reasonably practically use
Hmm.
when the GM is throwing it at the PCs.
That's right.
Yeah, that was one thing I learned, especially, boy, I have become an expert at formatting monsters because I also did the layout for the book. And I can tell you, after looking at these monsters and looking at the bestiaries, we have to talk about semicolons. You have a semicolon problem in Paizo books. There's sometimes not, there's a little floaty in there, I'll tell you. But it's amazing. It's like because half the monsters I was doing, I do the formatting, make sure it was the Paizo standard, and like half the monsters had a semicolon. I forgot where, like in one of the areas, and then half didn't.
Are you
So I
talking
was like,
about reactions between like trigger
it.
and effect?
Yeah, yeah, things like
Yep,
that. And
yep.
I was like, which one is it? And I actually had to ask some of the umpires, but even they didn't know. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make an executive decision, and this is what it's gonna be, and let's see who wins that one. Anyhow, scroll mold. Yes, this is a fun one, because these are literally spell books and scrolls in libraries that have been well in the library for so long that they grow sentient mold. And so there's a sometimes here say students of the arcane have muttered to themselves about a case of scrolls that wandered off on its own. Well, this is it. These literally wander off on their own because they become sentient.
Is it because
And
the mold like absorbed some of the arcane magic, which has
yes,
like thought essence is part of the magic
yeah,
and matter, and just kind of gets
hmm,
into them, and now they're smart?
That's pretty
yes,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, and they can't really. The funny thing is they can't move. They're one of the. I don't think I've ever seen a monster. Maybe you could tell me. Its speed is 0 feet. It has no speed,
I think there's
but it
some,
has.
but very, very few.
It's very rare. Even I had to like 0 feet, but they actually do have motion sense and camouflage, and they have a lot of spells, arcane spells, no less. So that's kind of how they can move around. They actually can cast Long Strider, so when they need to move, they can. That's how they get
Oh,
around.
because they have a
So
speed of 0 but not dash, so Long Strider puts it up from 0 to
10,
10.
I believe. Yes.
Okay, I see.
That's funny.
That's right. That's right. That's right. What they try to do is they have sleep or color spray. Color spray. So what they try to do is either color spray you or sleep you, and then they cast Long Strider, and then they run away, and then they hide. Like that's what they do. So it's a funny little monster. And this is the thing. It's like the best monsters are the ones that tell a story, like a complex story with very little. It's like, look how long we could talk about this thing, and it's just
Hmm.
like, oh, it's animated mold on a monster, and
Now I'm
that's what
imagining
you
one
can
of them
do.
dipping one of those mold tendrils into a into like a potion of expeditious retreat and scurrying away.
I could see that.
And then I'm scrolling up to Living Proof. This is actually these are very similar monsters because the Living Proof is where the heck is my Living Proof? They are sentient. They're not sentient. They're actually spells that fold themselves up and become little helpers. And you can here we go, Living Proof. You can actually even make them um, familiars if you want to as well. So yeah, these are mostly used by alchemists and they're tiny construct minions. And so basically, if a potentially powerful recipe or formula is left on the crafting table half finished, sometimes it will just manifest and turn into a little creature that will then help the alchemist and like be its little assistant. So, and they're literally just parchment and ink, and they just animate themselves and wander around and help you. And they have a very cool attack. You'll appreciate this. Their ranged attack is called Math Bomb, where they throw math at you to confuse you.
I
It's like
approve.
numbers. And then they have actually great. They have what is it? They have execute the formula, and that is an effect where they can make an alchemical bomb without any resources. So they can just decide to make one using the formulas written on their body, and then they take the bomb and throw it at you. So they have a lot of fun effects. This one, and its melee though is paper and it's non-lethal. So I didn't make a. There are rock monsters in here, but I don't think there's any scissor monsters in here. So
There you go.
Paper, huh? Is it gonna give you a nasty paper cut?
it's non-lethal, but it is slashing. So yeah,
There you
Yeah,
go. There you go.
there you go.
And I had two more to show here. There is the venomous snake dead
Snake
and
Dead.
the salt glider.
So the Venomous Snake Dead has an interesting history because that was the first art that I got for the book. That was like almost number one or two. I think it was like number one. And when I saw that, I said to myself, "Oh my God, this is going to be really good." I was like, I saw how good it can get. I was like, this. I think this was number one, and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be a good book." And yeah, the venomous snake deads are just let's see. Yeah, they're humanoid creatures and bitten many, many times by venomous snakes. So they're mindless undeads that are turned into half human, half snakes because they there's so many ways to make undead, and we figured it was time for snakes. And this is a gold one. Like this one actually, although it's a very simple one, it has a very cool attack. It is coil neck, which is a reaction where it could actually leap out and get you up to 15 feet away. And then it can coil its neck back up.
Nice.
So it has some pretty cool like attacks. But as you can see, the artist had a little influence from Beetlejuice because it looks just like the snake from Beetlejuice.
Yeah. I mean,
And
there's a
then,
lot of undead that are kind of like, I am embodiment of way that I died undead, but there hasn't been one before that I know of that the way that I died is lots of snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They have no society. They are just evil, and all they want to do is spread their evil and their snake dead venom. And eventually, it doesn't say it here, but I think if you get bit enough by them, then you can get turned into one. At least that's the way I'm going to run it in my game.
Makes
And
sense.
Legit.
then the salt glider. So
Salt Glider's
this is
author is in the chat too.
yeah. So Salt Glider. So there's actually this is
Huh.
an example. So the original winner was the Salt Stalker, which is a really cool dog. And we approached him, or Patrick did, and said, okay, we want to expand upon it. And can you do like a family? And they did. And we have the Salt Stalker. There's a Salt Scorcher, which
Ooh.
uses it actually is immune to fire, but they're actually weak to water. This is the Salt Glider, which is the flying form of these guys, and they do like airdrops. And there's also a Salt Mother,
Huh.
which is a big one. So this one's actually pretty tough. This one's a CR8, and this is these are the scouts. So they actually attack in packs because they're dogs. So this is sort of the scout that goes ahead and looks for people to attack, and then they go back to the pack, and then they attack en masse with the pack.
I like the
So
name Salt Glider because it sort of evokes, sugar gliders are like the nice little animals
mhm.
from the real world, but Salt Glider is like
Salt
the evil
gliders are
monster.
salt gliders. I really like the art here too, where it
Mhm.
feels really like unsettling and alien.
Yeah, they're completely desiccated. And in fact, that's what their poison does. Their poison will basically take away your fluids, and you die of you die of dehydration.
Yikes.
It's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, so they're pretty nasty, but this is an example of like building a family of monsters from one. They won with one monster, and we liked the idea, and obviously they won platinum, and it was so good. And that's like, that was the thing with the best monsters. Not that you couldn't do that with some of the others, but like it was actually pretty easy to come up with a whole family of monsters based on this concept. So,
I see a comment here. Sounds like a Damon's best friend.
Probably.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this one even I was blown away from the art because I really get good artists, and then I just Patrick did a lot of the art briefs, and I would, talk to the artist directly. Patrick would do the art brief and sort of see how he pictures it. I would then talk to the artists. And then I just work with the artist. And one thing is I always made sure the same artist did a family. So I make
Mm-hmm.
sure it was the same artwork for each creature. And yeah, this was actually one of my favorite ones. And then I even put the little drop shadow, if you see, to make sure you know. In the book, you can actually see it's up high, so it looks like it's flying through the pages. So.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. So, is this the last of the monsters?
Yes, well, it's not the last of monster-based things.
Oh my goodness.
No, there's not. No,
No, it
there's
is
not.
not. As promised, we're going to be talking about the monster parts system.
All right. Here's where it gets exclusive, everyone. So buckle your seatbelts.
Oh boy.
So, what are sort of the basics of this monster part system? I just put up a sort of four step.
That's right. So what you have up there is kind of something cool that it was Steven's idea to add on here, which is sort of like a getting started guide, which we have one for players and one for GMs that are just like, you know what? You're excited. You want to know how this works. You don't want to read through a few pages of different things to get to all the details. Right now, you just want to see what you need to do. So it's got a quick start guide. And this is the quick start guide for players. So with the players, there's 4 steps. First is you defeat monsters. And like if your group are not the ones to kill monsters and use their body parts, there's some alternatives in there for if you befriend them, and it talks about the fact that like an angel's feather that it's freely given may be more powerful and potent of a component than just like even 50 feathers you took off of the angel's corpse, for example. But either way, like in the game, you fight monsters,
Mm-hmm.
and then you collect parts That's step 2. And once you have the parts, you can do steps 3 and step 4. Step 3 is you build items and you upgrade them. You can level up your items, just kind of like you level up your characters by putting enough monster parts in them, and it will
Mm-hmm.
upgrade the item's fundamental abilities in a
Mm-hmm.
way that kind of replaces those fundamental runes and, like, the gold pieces and magic item stores that you might have for the items. And then you can imbue additional properties into the item. Every once in a while, when you level up your item, it might get another slot for imbuing magic into it. And at that point, you could imbue fire into your sword, for example. And there's more than one way to do it too. So if you imbue fire into your sword, you could imbue fire in a more magic path. They have like separate paths, and then that gives you like spells you can cast and like a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of offense on the sword. Might is the path where it's like all the damage on the sword, and then there's technique where you might like catch things on fire or do different debuffs that are but do a little less damage than the might path. So either way, when you imbue your items, they add like additional special properties that are on top of the way that the fundamental
Mm-hmm.
numbers of the items increase when you kind of refine them by leveling them up using these monster parts. And the cool thing is that there are basically, I have done all of the math. And, I did a lot of the math in Pathfinder Second Edition to begin with, and I redid from scratch the math for the economy of this system, and I did it using 3 different assumptions. One of which is that you kind of replace everything except for like some consumables with just monster parts, and you're not using gold pieces that much anymore, and you're not using like the regular magic items. And then there's one that's on the flip side where it's like, okay, you mostly are still using the magic items from the rules, but you have a few items that are made out of monster parts that are on top of that instead of maybe some of the loose gold, because maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're in the wilderness, and so instead of dropping money, since you can't go to a store, you just kind of replace that with monster parts. And then the hybrid system, which is probably the most fun. It's a little more work to put it into a published adventure that doesn't already use this system, but not that much more. And that's sort of in between, where you have a bunch of items using monster parts, you have a bunch of items that are not using monster
Mm-hmm.
parts, and you just use it all together. And I
Yep.
did all the math for all 3 of those so that you can not only have sort of replace like tables you can add on to the ones from the core rulebook that tell you how much loot to give out at every given level, but with the monster parts, but also estimates so that you can just say, oh, well, this was a 5th level monster. This is how much value of monster parts it should give. And you kind of use that value of monster parts to level up your item. It's almost like XP for your items when you plug in the monster parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, very specifically is that the light system is designed for, like, if you have a couple players that want to use it, but not the whole table wants to use it. So you can use the light system, and then a couple of people can just make a few pieces here and there. The full system is you replace everything. You replace even your potions. You even make potions out of monster parts. You make your magic items out of monster parts. You make everything out of monster parts. The hybrid is actually the one I've been working with, and actually the one I like the most because it completely replaces all of the runic system, and it's way more refined. It has the exact same math as the runic system, so you'll have no difference, but the big difference that you will have is that instead of having to wait to level 8 to get the fire rune, you can get a fire rune or fire imbuement, we call it, at level 2. You can get it right away. It's weak at level 2, but you have it. And then you can make it at level 4, it gets a little stronger. And at level 6, it gets a little stronger. And at level 8, it's actually exactly the same functionality as a level 8 fire rune. I believe it's level 8 fire rune. But the point is that if you put this system with the runic systems, they match up. So there's no power creep. There's no difference between the runic system. The main difference is that, for example, you can do a might path. So at 4th level, your strikes do 1 point of fire damage. As I said, it's not a lot of fire damage, but you get some fire damage when your sword is level 4. If it's level 6, you do 1d4 points of fire damage. When it's level 8, you do 1d6 points of fire damage, and then on a crit, it also does 1d10 persistent fire damage, which I believe is exactly the same as the rune. And you keep going up, and it goes all the way up to level 20. If you do the technique path, you get persistent fire damage. If you do the magic path, you can actually cast fire-related spells like Burning Hands or produce flame from your weapon. And so you can mix and match this however you want. So if you want to make a weapon, that has fire damage, but magical fire damage because it's more important for you to do magical, you can. Or if you want to, do persistent damage over time, you can. So you're not like bound. And that's one thing with the runic system. There's only so many runes. There's only so many fire and cold runes and bane and so forth. I tried to do the math. I mean, there's hundreds. How many imbuements are there, Mark? Like 500, 600? I mean, there's so many. It's ridiculous.
You mean
We have,
if you count all of the different levels of the different imbue?
yes,
If you count like,
yes,
oh well, there's the greater flame rune and the flame rune, that's 2. But if you
right.
count each of the levels that you can put an imbued property in, then yeah, there's hundreds. And there's
Yeah.
different combinations, because if you just want the most
Mhm,
fiery sword ever, you can get might, magic, and technique of fire all in one and just do all of the fire. And which kind of items and imbued properties you can craft depends on the monsters you're fighting. If you fight fire elementals, then you can get fire abilities from them. And another thing that I think is kind of a hidden, very powerful thing that's in here is that the base fundamental improvements from refining a shield give a certain
mhm,
amount of power as you level up, and then you can imbue it with a
mhm,
sturdy ability, and it will match
mhm,
sturdy shields, or you can imbue it with something else if you want, and it will not match sturdy shields, but it will still
mhm,
scale pretty well. So that's something you could use in your own games if you're not even using the monster part system and you just want
mhm,
a solid mathematical progression for shields to
mhm.
homebrew your own shields that are at various levels that aren't sturdy without worrying that you're going to be like, oh, making, the shield that is better than sturdy and doing all sorts of other things at the same time.
Mhm.
So I
So
think that
yeah,
that's going to be pretty useful as well.
So you've
so
mentioned weapons and shields. Are there other things that you
right.
can customize?
That's Yep, that's what I was going to say is that the system covers weapons, any type of weapon, any type of armor, including, mage if, you could just be wearing regular clothing.
Mm-hmm.
It covers shields in quite a bit of detail. It covers perception items, which I have a feeling because you only need a level 3 perception item and it gets you +1 to your perception and you can imbue it with magical power. I don't know about you, but in my game, it seems like every single person takes that one first because in the regular Pathfinder game, it takes you a while before you can get a perception item, the goggles of night, I think. And then there's skill items. So you can increase your skills as well very easily. And you can even increase your attributes. So those are the core items that you can build items out of. And one thing I look a question right here. The Silver Knight is talking about this seems really hard to manage. And I can tell you the secret of our system. The secret of the system is that it's not. And the reason is because it's sort of automatic. You don't have to make rolls to actually use this. You just kill monsters and then you figure out what they're worth and you make the parts. I'll give you an example. So in our game, we killed a centipede swarm, a couple of them actually, and suddenly they figured out they had enough parts from the centipede swarm to make goggles that will give you +1 perception, and because they'll be level 3 goggles. So what they did is they right there on the spot. You spend a few minutes, you just say what you're going to do. It's completely creative. You just say, okay, I'm going to make goggles. And I ask the player, okay, describe them. They're like, okay, I take all like the parts for the centipedes and I make little eyes, and I made these goggles so it looks like like a big old centipede face. And now I kind of look like a big old centipede eyes. And then he just whatever you want. It's just whatever you can create. And then it takes quote. I like to think it takes 24 hours for it to cure. So when you go to sleep and you wake up and you can imbue the item, and voila, that's it. You have +1 to perception. You're wearing cool goggles.
Yep.
That's the system. It's that easy.
So you
There's
don't
no
have like
rolls.
There,
crafting over long periods
No,
of time and
no,
like
you don't roll
checks
nope,
to
crafting.
checks to try to
nope,
determine amounts of success. This is
And
just
there's
nope.
sidebars and advice about the fact that, like, yes,
Hmm.
this makes it so the crafting skill has fewer uses. There's ideas for
Hmm.
things you can do. There's sidebars about plugging this in with automatic bonus progression, the relic system, and all
Hmm.
sorts of other systems. Like, we thought about those and we put in sidebars. I will say
Hmm.
that there is there's slightly more tracking. There still is, because you do
We're
still
still
do have to
tracking.
you're essentially tracking like the XP for all of your items now.
Hmm.
But the system heavily encourages you, like Steven said, to apply the items right away, because otherwise you're carrying like huge monster corpses that you can't even carry with you, and there's not really a huge advantage to waiting.
Hmm.
And so you won't have to keep track of like this massive treasury of items, because you're probably figuring out what you want to do with it and then just doing it, or at least
Hmm.
encouraged to do it right then at no cost with no roll. So the main
Hmm.
thing is just you keep track of the XP, aka the amount of monster parts you put in for each of your
Hmm.
items.
and
Yeah,
you can
and your
go
monster.
ahead and stick some parts into something in advance, even if you
Yeah.
don't have enough to
Yes.
upgrade it, so that you're not stuck being like, well, I want to
Hmm.
upgrade to this eventually, so I guess I'm carrying the scales of the flame dragon and the heart of the fire elemental and whatever. You can go ahead
Hmm.
and flump those in, and then
Yeah.
have it
Yeah.
nice and ready for you
Just
once
like
you got enough.
XP, you don't have to, do one big fight that gets you the whole level all at once. You
Hmm.
can build it up over time.
Yeah, and you can, and the thing is, the to keep the power creep out of it, your items can never be higher level than you. It's that simple. So you can put, 4 levels worth of gold into those goggles, but if you're level 2, they're level 2. Now, when you level up, they automatically level up with you, but they're never going to get higher than you are.
Right.
And the nice thing is also you can divide it however you want. Like one person doesn't have to take all the monster parts. You can cut it into any number of pieces. It's really flexible. The main thing is that in our games, it's beyond creative because now they're adding armor pieces and they're adding perception items. And the cool thing is now they're really sitting there thinking about it because they're like, oh, I just killed a. Well, actually, oozes are hard to turn into things. That's one of the issues. Like if you want to use an armor, you actually need armor to like you can't make heavy armor out of an ooze. That's like kind of part of the system. You need something that like has scales. But they did kill oozes, and they were like trying to figure out, ooh, what can we use this for? How can we like turn this into it? And then they made perception items, and then what they did is they actually had something already that they started, and then they took more of it, and then like put it on, and then like hardened it, and you can hear the creativity and the role playing coming from just making parts and there's no rules. It's like, yeah, it just works.
Oh, it's
So you
because
can just make
oozes have
anything you
motion
want.
sense, so you can make perception items out of creatures that have
Hmm.
like extra special perception types.
Hmm. And that's yeah, it's and there is, there are some rules on how it works is that certain monsters have to have that ability. So for example, if you want to make a weapon that has slashing, you need to kill a monster that has slashing. You can't make it, using bashing and things like that. I don't want to get into that too much, but there are like little caveats. But again, this is your game. If you find that it's too much record keeping and too much bookkeeping, then skip it. Then just say, monster parts, they work. You don't have to do it that way. We have it in here because, obviously we're trying to make it work within the logic of the system. But if it's too much work for your team, the math works. Like you don't
Hmm.
have to go to that level. You really don't.
That's why it's full of
So,
sidebars for variants to make it your own.
mhm,
Because I
yeah.
really, really believe in the fact that players and GMs and game groups are, you're all kind of the game designers of your experience.
Mhm.
And I want to give you the math and do the hard part to back you up so that you feel confident in doing what's right for your group. So just like Steven said, if you don't care too much about the fact that, oh, the monster had to have slashing damage to make this slashing weapon, you can remove that, and then you hardly need to track anything at all,
Yep.
because you just pour the XP directly into whatever weapon you want. And it's not technically experience points, it's monster part value, but it essentially is like XP
It
for
works
items.
like that, right? Yeah. Just you have a total that goes up, and once it hits a certain point, ding, new ability.
And then you always name the item based off of like the coolest monster that you put parts into it from. So like if you kill the T-Rex to help make your sword, then it might be like the Tyrant's Claw or something like that.
Yeah, the sidebars, that was me. Because I showed this to people, and Mark wrote it, and then we showed it to people, and then we came up with every single hole that we can find in the system. So then Mark just kept writing more and more and variants, and we just made sure one advantage of having a podcast of power gamers and professional role players, they know what they're doing, so they poke the crap out of this thing. And Mark and I went back, and even just now, just a few days ago, they encountered a haunt, and they were like, can we make a haunt from monster parts? And Mark and I were like, Mark's like, sure. So I added another couple of sentences.
Say that you could, but it makes sense if
you
defeat
so
a
now
haunt,
we added it,
or you defeat like a quicksand hazard or a trap that
Yeah.
has something physical that you can grab.
Crystallized ectoplasm, or or the deadly scythe blade from the spinning tornado of death.
Yeah, the Vorpal Executioner or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
You could just grab that and put it into your sword. Why should you not be able to disassemble traps and make them into your weapons? So we decided
this whole thing, haunts and hazards.
So it's actually something really great about the process and the timing of it is that the way Steven's printing it, he's had time to, use it hardcore in that Malevolence stream and really, kick the tires on the system. Plus, he show it to a lot of more hardcore game people, and also just some people who weren't as much knowledgeable of Pathfinder Second Edition. And that provided a useful perspective to help us understand what we needed to explain better. So that was actually super useful for it.
They
that's where the
tons
quick
of
start
ideas and feedback. That was awesome.
Yeah, the quick start guide actually that came from Param, because one thing is that this system is not modeled after anything. Like a lot of times you're thinking, okay, this is based off that, or there's nothing like this. This really is its own thing. So we came up with this
Monster
idea.
Hunter, but it's not the same because you don't.
Well, no,
have
it's
to kill
not.
Like a
I'll tell you why.
Single monster.
Right, right, and it's because someone asked me today on Reddit, will this work with what is it, Gears and what's the new book?
Guns and Gears.
Guns and Gears. I couldn't remember the other one. G&G, the Guns and Gears. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, of course. It works with anything, because Monster Hunter, because I was talking to someone, they said, what's the difference? I said, well, Monster Hunter, which I love. The problem with Monster Hunter is that you kill a specific monster to build specific armor and weapons. This is, you kill anything and you can make anything. You want to kill a monster and make a gun? Guns don't exist in the rules. Doesn't matter. It'll work. It just will. It's just
automatically
it works.
future-proofed for anything that comes
you can
later.
make anything.
So you can make anything with this system. Obviously, if it doesn't fall at all within the bounds of weapons, armor, shields, skill items, or perception items, which the skill item and perception item can be almost anything. Well, at that point, if it's very magical, you might have to get creative, but if it's a mundane item, there's still rules that just say you make the mundane item out of the monster parts, right? Like, if it's something in Guns and Gears that is just like a mundane Gearsy item and you want to build it out of a clockwork construct you defeated, sure, you can do that. And it doesn't take that much effort to extrapolate how to do it if it's not a mundane item and it's not one of those 6 kinds of main things.
It's simple enough to fight a devil wielding a chain and break up its chain into caltrops or something like that.
Or chainsaw.
Or chainsaw, yeah.
There is a chainsaw in Iron Gods. But so the quick start guide. So here's a picture of the quick start guide for GMs. It's a little smaller, but again, we go through the same 4 steps. You choose the variant, and that was what we said before: light, hybrid, or full.
It's slightly different steps, but
well, there's still 4 steps.
Yeah, there's still 4, but the GM has their own steps because first you choose which of those variants to use. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Right, and then you discuss it with you determine how you want to actually use it as treasure, and then you communicate with your players, and then once you figure out a system, then you play the game, and that's it. And as I said, once they get going, it really even it was a little bit of a, oh, this sounds weird. It's a third party thing. I'm like, well, it's written by Mark. It's gonna work. And second of all, wait until you start using it. And now they are looking for monsters to kill. They can't wait to find stuff to create their new weapons and armor and items. They are going. It's a whole new aspect of the game that has opened up
That's really
by having
gratifying.
this system.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. And you should see when they kill it, they're like, okay, what did we just kill? It's like, ooh, we killed a mimic. Ooh, what can we turn a mimic into? And they're
Ooh,
just
now
sitting there.
Now
It's
that's
that's
a
endless
good question.
possibilities right there.
yeah, they're having a lot of fun with turning into because there's no rules. It's like not well, there's rules, but there's no rules in what you can make things. And the
There's
other
just
thing is you
very
can make.
small restrictions that the common
Mhm,
sense ones, and you could avoid them also just if you decide that you want to.
yeah. And it works really, really, really well for adventures where you're in the middle of nowhere. So like Malevolence takes place in a haunted house. Haunted house. You're in the middle of nowhere, literally. You have no access to anything. So how do you do this? How do you level up your character and more importantly level up your gear? Because Pathfinder is designed that if you're fighting a sixth level monster, that you should have sixth level gear. And if you're a sixth level, character with third level gear, you're going to be in trouble. Well, guess what? You killed the monsters, now you have sixth level gear because that's how it works. You can do it in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's working out even better
T
than I
for Goblins has a
expected.
question about whether or not it forces people to be more murdery than they were before. And we covered this a little bit earlier, but the system talks about variations for
Mhm.
peaceful interactions and about it
Mhm.
uses that idea from fantasy that like an angel's feather freely given is charged with more magical power than just
Mhm.
the feathers you can even just one than just a bunch of feathers you can pull off of a dead angel that you killed,
Mhm.
and it's part of
Yep.
sort of the power of volition and
Mhm.
gift and your connections. And so in that way, you cannot kill a creature, and like the dragon might give you one of its old scales, but that gift
Mhm.
makes it hold the power. The point is that since the system doesn't say I need 5 Ketchawetcha uh,
Mhm.
claws or like Monster Hunter to build this particular item, all that matters is the value, aka the XP that the item is getting. And you could just say
Mhm.
that one scale the dragon gave you was worth 1,000 GP because it was gifted to you by the dragon, and then it
Mhm.
works. So you would not need to have a system where you're killing all the monsters, but I mean a lot of times people do, and it works for that too.
Mhm.
I see
Yeah,
it.
but we made sure it worked with social interactions. It works with hazards. It works with traps. It works with haunts.
Mm-hmm.
Like we tried to make sure that you weren't murder hobos. Um, so yeah, there were a lot of ways for you to get parts, and you can trade parts and you can even buy them. It's not like something super easy to do. The system is designed more for you to get your own, but
Right.
it is possible. So you can trade with other people and also even go to stores that might sell them.
Right.
So,
It talks about trading parts that you can't use or fully
mhm,
create items created using the system, trading with someone for
mhm,
like more raw parts that
mhm,
you can use to upgrade your items.
Hmm.
And
mhm,
so, but like Steven said, if you're using it alongside gold pieces, you could sell it for gold. I
mhm,
see a question here about how does it work to make craft still functional. There's a few ideas, one of which is just you use the normal crafting rules, but it mentions that makes it take an awfully long time to like get your value into the item. You use normal crafting rules for the most part, but at a faster rate. Um,
mhm,
and you might not be able to upgrade your items quickly enough if you had to use the normal crafting rules too much. But it depending on the pace of your campaign and what you want to do with crafting, that could work for you.
mhm.
There's a question: do biological parts have a limited shelf life?
No, they do not. But one thing we did with the system, or Mark did, is that the parts are extremely heavy. So it really is designed so that after you kill the monster, or at least after the way we've been doing it, is they're not so heavy that you can't kill them and carry them around for a day. So with our game, our actual active game, using the system, they've been killing the monsters, and then when it's time to go to sleep, they sit around, figure out who wants to do what, they build the items they want, they go to sleep, they wake up, and the items are built and working. So they usually don't do it right away, but they keep them and keep the items for the day and then use them up and then start over.
That
So
makes
it's actually,
sense.
yeah, it's been actually working out very well. And, hey, bags of holding, from what I understand, things last indefinitely inside of a bag of holding. So put that biological part in there and it'll come out just as fresh as a daisy a year later. So,
And in terms of what you're doing, you're kind of taking off pieces that you can preserve and put into your item. If it was something that was gonna kind of go bad, you wouldn't want it to go bad in your item. There's also a variant option in there for people who want to make spend their downtime like getting more parts out of the monsters they defeated by using the kind of skills that you would need to
mhm,
sort of do that, and it just basically increases the
mhm,
monster part value by spending downtime to do so. So get more that you can preserve that doesn't go bad, or
mhm.
find more pieces that you wouldn't have found otherwise.
I mean, you're probably not going to be like, oh, I'm going to defeat a boar and then I'm going to like make an axe out of boar meat. Like, you're going to be looking for those more durable parts to make your items.
The axe of boar
Hey
meat. Now
man,
we
but
need
if
to have that.
if you want to make in my game, you want to make an axe out of boar bacon, go right
The
ahead. You
bacon
can do
axe,
it.
or the
The
baconator,
Baconator.
maybe.
There you
Yeah,
go, the Baconator.
the baconator has like some kind of lore ability based on the smell of bacon.
Right.
See, that's the thing. There's no rules on what you can make. So if your GM says go for it, everyone could be walking around with like, salad shooters and baconators, and it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
great. They're going to have like a whole food buffet
I feel like
going on
salad
there.
shooters might have come from Leschies, and so I'm
Uh-oh.
contractually obligated
That's
Oh,
to
right.
disapprove.
That's
So,
right. When you kill a slushy, that's where the salad shooter comes from.
so I think we had a couple more surprises that are not directly the monster parts, but were
Ooh,
um,
That
maybe,
is
that
right.
are
I've got
maybe.
another
that
thing
are
ready to
heavily
show up here.
supportive of the style of campaign where you go around and find rare monsters.
So who is this person that I just put up here?
I have to see her. Is that Zara I
It is
see?
Zara.
That is Zara.
Zara, the iconic monster mage. So, what is a
Mm-hmm.
monster mage?
Mm-hmm.
What is she there dressed all in blue? She is an archetype that tracks down monsters for her own reasons, or for your own reasons if you're a monster mage, which is that you're trying to make these tokens that come from monsters that have their own innate spells. And you collect a variety of these tokens on you, each of which contains one of the monster's spells from a monster you've defeated. Or maybe you defeated them in a game of wits, or befriended them and gained a token of their favor, like the nymphs can give tokens. Regardless, um, each of these has a spell, and you can prepare those spells from all four traditions of magic. So, there's usually like a very, as you can see with Zara, like there's this magical blue glow that comes out of it. So they've sometimes been called Azure mages, but people who actually understand how their magic works realize that it's not about the color, but it's about getting magic from monsters.
I see what you did there.
You
So
see?
does chat.
Well, I mean, Steven did directly say that she is a blue mage.
Mm-hmm.
She is. She
But the
is.
thing is that getting a token does not like make you lose any value of monster parts, right? So it's synergistic. If you
Mm-hmm.
you might have someone in your party who really wants to find fire parts for a fire upgrade for their sword, and then you have your monster mages like, oh yeah, if we can kill a monster with fireball, I'd really like to get a token of fireball. That'd be a nice one to add on. And you
Mm-hmm.
also always get the spell as the same tradition that they had it. So you know those sneaky fae that are always hacking primal magic to cast illusion and enchantment spells that aren't even usually primal, where they're like, yeah, no, but we hack primal magic, we're fae.
Mm-hmm.
You can hack it too if you want and get around some of monsters who have resistances to like arcane or divine magic, and you're like, no, but mine is primal because that's where I got it from.
So, question here: this is an archetype, not a class.
It is an archetype, not a class.
So that means anybody can take it.
Everybody can take it, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's an archetype, not a class. A class would have an even heftier footprint. You could probably make a class that is similar to this, although it would be a little more challenging because if it had full casting progression instead of the progression it has, which is based on archetype casting progression, it would be maybe a little bit overwhelming in campaigns where you have access to a lot of monsters, where it's like, yeah, but I cast off all 4 lists. But the way that it is an archetype actually inherently balances that so that you don't have to worry about, like Steven says, not worrying about power creep. Even though it is potentially very powerful if you've killed a lot of monsters and made a lot of tokens, it's not going to get out of hand because of the fact that it's limited because it casts the amount that an archetype normally would.
Mhm. It's basically you can get spells. It's also balanced because yes, you can get spells from any discipline, but you actually have to get them off monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually have to find the spells. You can't just decide I just want spell A, B, and C. You're a little limited on the monsters you find, but trust me, there's more than enough spells that monsters have and special abilities. You can use it for special abilities if you wanted to. It doesn't have to just be
Well,
spells.
while we're
So,
talking about special abilities, though, that's an excellent
mhm,
segue because there's
that's
another
right.
archetype that steals monster
Oh,
special abilities.
is there?
Yes, and
Who's
here we have
that?
Boom! Here we go.
our iconic Vestige Hunter. What is his name again, Steven?
Kruger.
Kruger. Kruger, the iconic Vestige Hunter. So your monster mage is more of an archetype for mages, or someone who wants to learn some spells. Vestige Hunter is a little more martial in their bent, and what a Vestige Hunter does is that once they've defeated a monster, and you could again do this from defeating them in a game of wits or even maybe befriending them, but it's typically you've defeated the monster and they incorporate something from the monster in their items, in themselves, like the story of how, Sigurd defeated the dragon Fafnir and he was covered in its blood, and then he gained all these weird powers based on that. So you can either put them into your items or have it come into you. And if you put them in your items, you can see that's what Kruger does for the most part. He's got a shield with like a dragon head on it and gain a breath weapon. But you can also put it in yourself and be like kind of more of a shapeshifter where you shapeshift kind of a dragon head and do a breath weapon. And you can like gain grab or constrict that just kind of comes out of your weapon and it turns into a tendril. But you can also put it in yourself and just your arm turns into a tendril and does a grab and constrict. So the Vestige Hunter is to the monster mage the other side of that, where you steal monster special abilities. It has to be from a monster that had that you defeated, and you get a feat that you take a feat that requires you to have in its prerequisites defeated the right kind of monster, and then you permanently gain that ability.
Mhm.
And also,
Yeah, this.
again, it doesn't stop you from taking tokens from that monster or monster parts for the monster part system. So it's synergistic because the same time that you killed that red dragon to get fire imbuements for your imbue properties for your weapons, and to get its fireball innate spell for your monster mage, and your Vestige Hunter can grab its head on a shield or whatever and get its breath weapon. So they all work together.
Yeah, in fact, they are buddies, Zara and Kruger, and you'll see them in many of the artwork because they go kill monsters, and Zara gets the tokens and casts spells, and then Kruger takes the other pieces and grafts them onto his armor, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
They're peanut butter and jelly.
And there's a
They work
couple
together
mini
very well.
treatises by Zara and Kruger in there that are in their voice,
Mhm.
so that,
Mhm.
that you can kind of learn about what it means to do their thing.
Yep. And as Mark said, you can be a little bit more of a shapeshifter or a flesh warper. Like in this case, he is actually those dragon wings are attached to his armor, and the dragon face head is on the shield, breathing fire. But if you want, you can eat them, and grill wings and have the ability to breathe fire yourself. You don't actually have to, make it parts on your weapons. So it's whatever you want, you can sort of mix and match and change it up. So
Mm-hmm.
and these are just some of the abilities. These are there's more abilities than just these, but this is also an archetype. And this is my favorite thing about my job because I just say to Mark, Mark, wouldn't it be nice if we came up with a magic user that used monster parts and he writes it up. I just come up with the ideas, he does all the work. I just then get some cool artwork, I name them, and voila, it's a great synergy between me and Mark.
It works well. Yeah, Steven was just like, I want some archetypes that support this system, and maybe like one that's good for casters, one that's good for marshals, and figure something out. And I'm like, okay, I can work with that. Let's make it cool. Let's make it something people want, because people wanted a blue mage, and people want the
Hmm.
ability to like gain monster abilities, put them into your weapons, or even be a shapeshifter. So
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to being able to work with this monster part system in the future. Already thinking about the next game that I run.
nice.
Yeah, it's so easy to use. Although I wonder what's the chances of getting into Pathfinder Society? Probably pretty low, but you never
That
know.
would be basically zero, because
I know,
third
I know.
party or even licensed second party products don't go into Pathfinder Society. But
I
if
know.
you're not playing Pathfinder Society,
But
I'd
hey,
heavily encourage checking it out for your
hey,
own home game. And like, third
that's
party
right.
products have a variety of amazing things in them that are, it's kind of a new world
Mhm,
to explore. And a lot of times, like we talked about here, Steven was able to, through the process and the timing of this, which is a little different than Paizo's process. It doesn't have as many like additional months in it, to get these out into the
mhm,
eyeballs of just a wide variety of different people who could come back. We could iterate, and he could get it changed. And so that's something that
mhm,
this book that was not first party had, that was an advantage for it, that you can't always
mhm,
necessarily see in Paizo products. Paizo obviously have huge number of advantages too, but they all have their pros and cons, and so I think it's important to check out third party products just in
Mm-hmm.
general, not just the one I wrote for,
mhm.
but all of them, and see which ones are going to work well for your game.
Just because society already has its hands full with first party products doesn't mean that
Sorry,
they're not
Linda.
it doesn't mean that they're
Sorry,
not
we're
worth.
giving you Secrets of Magic and Guns and Gears.
Yeah, I know.
Back to
Trust
back.
me, trust
Yeah.
me, I know. And that's only the Pathfinder side. There's also the Starfinder side of all of their
Oh,
products.
and it doesn't include Grand Bazaar.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
Trust
and
me,
by the
I am
way,
aware.
so if you do want to get the book, I forgot about that. You can sign up ahead of time. Just go to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com and you'll get to the Kickstarter pre-launch page. And the Kickstarter starts August 31st. And people were like, well, why do you need a Kickstarter? Because you kind of have the book done. And the answer is not really, because we finished the book, kind of. And then Mark and I were like, that was so much fun. We should do more stuff. And then Patrick wrote me and said, can we do more? And then more people started to write me and more people. And suddenly I have a lot of people who want to work on this book. And one of my artists wanted to keep working. So we're like, let's just keep going. So we are adding a lot more than just this book. This is the tip of the iceberg.
This is the beginning.
There's a couple more books that will be part of this Kickstarter. Now, again, the focus is this book. Like the basics of the Kickstarter will be for this book, but there's going to be many more add-ons. And unlike other Kickstarters where you get like a stuffed animal or you get
Hey,
a
don't make
card
fun of
deck,
plushies.
I've
it's nothing
kickstarted
wrong with
several
plushie.
plushies.
I agree, but I only have so much room in my shelves. I can only have so many plushies. I'm trying to give biggest bang for buck, so we're getting content out. You're going to be getting new books, new rules, new. There's going to be a lot. Let's just say there's going to be a lot being supported on this. So there's going to be a lot of options. But again, if you go to Kickstarter.rollforcombat.com, and we'll spoil those over the next couple of weeks
Yeah,
before the
we don't want to get
Kickstarter
too
goes
much into
live.
it. I feel like you posted
Yeah.
on one of the discords about at least one of the other products already. Um,
Mm, Which one? Well, I did on my Discord and my private Discord.
Oh,
All right,
was
so
it in your
well, yeah.
private Discord? Okay, there we
Well,
go then.
okay,
It's
so
That's why.
semi-private.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
put
It
it
only
this
talk
way,
about this here.
yeah. Well, if you want, yeah, just go to the discord.rollforcombat.com, and then you can find
I
out
mean,
about it.
it was
But I'm not
on
going to
it was
talk
on
about it. But I will
Battlezoo
tell you that
pre-orders,
Linda's
which is
it
open to people who want to
it
pre-order,
it.
right?
Well, it's not a pre-order. Okay, I will
But
call it
it
here.
was in the channel Battlezoo pre-orders. Is that an
It
open
is
channel?
called, yeah, it says RPG Superstar, yes, Battlezoo Bestiary and Adventure. So
Yes.
there, yeah, so there will be an adventure that will support the Battlezoo Bestiary, and the adventure will have all the monsters will be from the bestiary. Not all the bestiary monsters, but all the monsters will be from the bestiary in the adventure, plus new ones, plus variants. And we are going to write the monster part system right in the adventure so that you can use it right out of the gate. Not you can't, but it's going to be written right in with it designed around it. And then we'll also put in, for those who don't want to use monster parts, you could just use regular old Paizo parts. But that's it. I gotta tell you a little more. It's a
Looks
three
like
book
there's a
adventure. There,
picture. There's a placeholder
there's a
picture with the
picture.
name on there too.
Yeah, as a placeholder picture, you go to the Discord, you can find it. But yes,
Yep.
there's going to be a 3 book adventure pathy thing.
I
It's
see a Gamayun on
smaller.
that picture.
Maybe it's a Gamayun. Maybe there's a society of Gamayuns. Maybe there's a whole pirate society of Gamayuns. Maybe it's very Indiana Jones like. Maybe it's going to be very Pixar like, where it's going to be a lot more goofy and fun than sometimes you'd find in some Pathfinder products. That's why I had to get Linda involved because I was like, Linda, it's going to be goofy. It's going to be fun. There's going to be lushies. Can you help out? And she's
Leshies.
like, That's right,
why,
Leshies. There's
yes,
going to be a
yes, I am going to be. Why, yes, I am going to be quite involved in this, actually.
Any
Yes, that's right.
bats?
So we're going to make sure it is. Eddie, what?
Any bats?
Any bats?
Yeah.
There isn't a bat monster, but I have a feeling Linda can write one because
Oh,
there
I
is
have a feeling I can write one too. I've already got my mind swimming on some ideas.
All
okay,
right.
but yeah, this adventure is going to be. We'll talk about it a lot more in the future because we're still going through the outline and putting together the structure of the adventure.
I'm sure
But
Linda will have
it's
leshies
There
in there,
will
though.
there will
I mean,
be.
she is the queen of leshies.
I can guarantee you there will be at least something cute.
yes. Oh, there'll be things
Nothing
cute.
nothing I write is devoid of cute things.
What was
Yeah,
the
but
cute thing in Fires in the Haunted City?
Ah, there had to have been
yeah,
something.
yeah. What was that?
I mean, it was
Yep.
very dwarfy. It
That
didn't
was
have
pretty.
that much that was
Yeah,
cute.
you're right. That maybe. Hmm. Gosh, maybe that's not true. Maybe that. I mean, that was like a pretty heavy adventure, though. It's like, here you are. You're on the opposite side. You're on one side of the wall in your citadel, and on the other side of the wall are the tormented spirits of your ancestors who can never find rest, and those aren't actually the biggest problem that you face.
Oh no.
That could mean certain doom. So, yeah.
Well, there's 2 Leshies in the book already. I mean, there's the Wildfire Leschi, which is Leschi made from basically burnt wildfire remnants of a forest, and then there's the Leschi Husk, which is basically an undead Leschi. It's sort of like dead forest materials that turn into a Leschi, and so you can easily use those because once again, I don't know. I think you're starting to get a reputation for this, Linda, because you're getting the more serious book, the more serious sort of heavier book than the super fun one. So it's sort of becoming your forte, it looks like.
Glicker,
So how?
you gave me back matter space too, so I get to.
That's true. I did
get,
give you
I
back
get
matter
to. I get
space.
to write
So
the rules that I want to write.
that's right. I'm actually, yeah. Mark knows how easy I am to work with. I'm just like, yeah. I just give the ideas. You guys figure out the rest. But
Hmm.
it's gonna, there'll be room for cute things. Slaughtering is fun. I mean, that's
Oh
cute,
boy.
kind of,
You
right?
can't. I mean, you can't spell slaughter without laughter.
That's right.
Yay! Yay!
Wow. They may have to make that the title. You can't spell slaughter without laughter. That actually might not be a bad title for the book.
That seems like something that may have already been done. Worth checking.
It actually, yeah, it might have actually. It does sound familiar now.
I don't know if anyone has literally like made that a catchphrase.
I'm gonna haunt Kitsune Warlock's nightmares. Do I win a prize? Sorry, Dustin.
There's apparently an album called "You Can't Spell Slaughter Without Laughter."
Well, there you go.
So there you go.
It has indeed been done.
And there's a joke.
So, are there any other? Do you have questions while we have everyone here? We could talk more about the monster part system or the archetypes. There's also new items in the bestiary, and the items are based directly off the monsters that you slay. And both either you take them off or you can create new items. There's new backgrounds. Pretty much, we went to town. It's like Mark finished up the monster parts, and I was like, let's go crazy. Let's add backgrounds and archetypes and items and just keep going. And we actually did run out of things. It took a while. It did take a while.
It kept being like, are you still working on that? And he's like, oh, yeah, Steven and I had another idea.
Yeah. It's like, Steven extended my contract. We're going to do more. We're going to do more.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
And so the backgrounds, and the archetypes I wrote. And I think, did Patrick write the new items?
He did. Patrick wrote the items.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, I can only get so many of your spoons, so I had to have him. He was actually done with his part, so I was like, "You want to write some items?" He's like, "Sure." Pocket edition. So right now, the Kickstarter will have a PDF version, the standard version of which you have the cover art by Sheppy, and there will be a special edition version that right now will have different cover art. It's wraparound. Sheppy's art's actually on it too, but there's different cover art. There's going to be I think it has like gold leaf on the outside.
Nice.
We're gonna have a different end. There's actually different end caps, and there's also gonna be a bookmark. We're trying to make it really nice. So it's gonna have more or less the same content in the inside, but that will only be available on the Kickstarter and nowhere else.
And
The,
Sheppy
special
is
edition.
Sheppy T.S. Rodriguez. If you're a member of the Arcade Mark community, you might have seen that Sheppy also is an Arcade Mark community member who watches the show and posts on the Arcade Mark Discord. Which, by the way, if you don't know, the Arcade Mark Discord is tiny.cc/arcademark, which I'm putting here. But I think
Mark, did you grab the invite link for the other one already? For
what?
For Glicker, what's the invite for the Roll for Combat one?
For Discord?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just discord.rollforcombat.com.
Oh,
Discord.rollforcombat.com.
Real
Nice.
easy.
So,
Yeah, and Sheppy does all the artwork for all of my characters. So if you go to Roll for Combat, and we have cover art for every character of every adventure, and he does all of them.
Linda,
So he's
there's a
sort of
request
become
for
our
Zara
go-to.
again.
All right. Zara.
Oh,
incoming.
Zara. I know. Zara,
Zara
that is
goes
not
away.
Sheppy. That's a different artist.
Zara comes in.
So Numbat is asking any idea what the shipping cost might be, because international might be extortionate just because that is the current state of international shipping.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that. I actually spoke to my fulfillment house today, and we are going to work on all that. I'm actually getting all the weights for the different books and the different add-ons, and I don't, but we're going to put it on the Kickstarter, and we're going to try to be as accurate as possible. And unfortunately, between COVID and the Suez Canal, it is a mess. I will tell you that. It is a little bit of a mess, but because I am working with a company that does nothing but this, they do have very good rates. So I'm doing my best to make sure that international shipping is reasonable. The other thing is, we're not shipping a ton of. It's not a board game. It's not a board game that weighs 35 pounds. The Monster Bestiary, I think, is 2 pounds. The other books and support items will probably be another 3 or 4. So, if you're shipping 6 pounds worth of stuff international, it's not going to be that bad as opposed to, a 30, 40-pound board game. That's going to be really hard.
So Smart Goblin is wondering, is the Kickstarter the only place to buy the book at all, or just to get the extras and the special edition?
For now, the Kickstarter will be in the beginning, And then after we will get it printed up, and then we are going to probably put it both on the Roll for Combat website, and then we can also put it. We're planning on putting it on Amazon as well, so you'll be able to get the book later, but you'll be able to get the PDF from us at any time afterwards. So the Kickstarter is basically, believe it or not, it's also a little bit easier, strangely, to do fulfillment versus through a Kickstarter, especially internationally. To get the literally kickstarts, it's a little easier for me to kickstart my method of actually getting distribution and getting it out because originally I was just going to put it on Amazon and that was it. And like you're going to be limited on how many countries can get it. But now it's going to go anywhere in the world. And yeah, and then so the goal is do the Kickstarter, figure out how many books we need, and then we'll print up the number of books, the number of special editions, and the number of regular editions. The other books as well that are going to be coming, we'll print those too. And then I'm going to put them up, and you can get them, after the Kickstarter as well. There's the discount, significant discount though. If you get it on the Kickstarter, it's going to be less money than if you bought them retail later. That's also another advantage of Kickstarter that because you're first one out, you get it for less, and you'll get it as soon as it's ready. And we're planning on doing the PDFs as soon as they're ready. So when the PDFs are ready, if the book even takes like a month or two to show up, then you'll get the PDF right away, and then you'll get the book after, so you can start using it. Now, for the next RPG Superstar, well, believe it or not, we did last RPG Superstar around now, and that's when we did 2020. So what I'm probably going to do is do that. Probably not going to do it right now, but I'm going to do it again next year and do 2022. And we'll probably do monsters really worked out well. We might make a theme for the monsters this time. So we might make it a little bit not too limited, but maybe certain types of monsters so that it's not just anything, or maybe not. I really don't know how we're going to do it yet, but there's a lot of work we put into the tool, and you could just go to, I think it's just rollforcombat.com. Sorry, I mean, it's just rpgsuperstar.com. I haven't been to the site in a long time. Let's see, rpgsuperstar.com. Hey, what do you know? It worked. Yeah, you go there. You can build monsters all you want. And that tool, we put a lot of work into it. The monsters I showed you, we actually export them. Paizo should use this tool. I keep telling Eric. I actually export the monsters out of the website and put them right into InDesign, and they're done. It does
Nice.
all the formatting, everything. I
Awesome.
don't have to. It's very fast. When Patrick was, using it, he couldn't believe how easy it was. He's like, "Wow, this is fast." So it was able to do, the whole book layout in just like 2 weeks because there was literally just copying and pasting them right into the book, and the formatting was done.
It makes
Because the
sense.
formatting of a monster table, oof, it's a lot of formatting.
Yeah, it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense to do RPG Superstar every other year just based on
Mhm.
how much you're doing with them.
Yes.
Like, you're not just
Yeah,
refining down to one person and then doing something else. You are
right.
taking like 100 entries from each one, so that's just like a
Yeah.
obviously a more like involved process.
And then you've got
Yeah.
all of these other things building onto it as well. So.
And the add-on
Yeah,
products.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kept going. So that was the thing. And also we wanted to do more than one winner, like if yeah, you're right. If we did one winner, even five winners, I could have done this every year or even twice a year. But because we had 100 winners, we had 101 winning monsters. But I don't know who, I forgot her name, but one person won gold. You can put up to three monsters, and it was all anonymous, so no one knew what they were voting for, and it was random. It was all random. It was all done by the computer. No one knew anything, and one person won three times three gold monsters. So hire her, because that was impressive, I have to say.
And how many gold were there at all? Like ten?
Yeah, no, there's let me look on the I'm doing off the top of my head, but I'm looking at the winners. You can go, and the
Yeah,
winners are
I know
public, by the
it
way.
wasn't a huge number of gold,
Mm-hmm.
It was one grand prize. There's
right?
five platinum.
Mm-hmm.
There's 12
Okay, there's
gold.
12 gold, and 3 out of
Right.
12 of those are from one woman. So I think that
Yes.
could prove
Noted.
not only that you have a rating like statistically the chances of that are so low to happen at random that it proves that there's
Mhm,
some like power in the ranking system and that
mhm.
she was obviously very very impressive.
Yeah, Catherine Kolovic. I probably mispronounced her name. Silver. I forgot how many are silver, 30 something, and then 65 copper, I believe, I think it was, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as I said, the biggest thing, and this is what I wanted to do, is that I will talk. I've been talking to all the authors too on Discord as the monsters were getting created. I even got some of their feedback, and then I would show them the monsters afterwards. But I was even telling them like what we edited and why we edited it. And I was doing that. I had to stop because then everyone wanted their feedback, and it was getting a little out of hand. But I promise you, I will go back and tell you why. And more importantly, you can actually see all the monsters are public on RPG Superstar. You can see them all in the winners section. But the funny thing is, like, if you look at the Salt Stalker here, I'm looking at it now. It's very different. It's very different than the final one. Not so much that it's like a completely different monster. It's just more refined and fine-tuned. And also we had to fit it for space. That's something else that we had to do. Like on the web, you can make these as big as you want. We had some monsters. I think it's there's a prismatic ooze. The prismatic ooze is really cool, but it changes its ability based on the colors of the rainbow. The ooze barely fit on the page because it was so big. We have like one sentence of flavor because it was so big. It was just too much monster.
You know
And
that a
we,
monster you know
that
that a
that's an issue.
monster's
Like
got a
sometimes you just
lot
make
going
too
on
much of
with
a
it when its
monster.
flavor sentence is just like,
This is a colorful ooze.
this is the colorful ooze, or like, this devil embodies the greed that lurks in the
Yeah,
hearts of all men, or something like that. It's done.
it's Yeah, it's there was not a lot of room left, and then unfortunately, even the art I had to make a little smaller because I was like, oh, it's this huge ooze, it's gigantic, and there's a little bitty art in the corner because we couldn't cut. It's hard to cut the stuff from the monsters. You don't want to take it out
Yeah.
of it, but it's yeah, that's one of the big things you'll learn when you do this.
Page count, copy fit. They're harsh.
Uh, yeah, it is harsh, a harsh mistress. But at the same time, I also had no copy fit, or I had no page count for Mark. Mark and I were like, he's like, "How much do you want?" I'm like, "Keep writing, just keep on writing,
I
just
was
keep
like,
going."
this is the minimum I'm gonna need to do it. So, and Steven's like, all right, we'll do that, and then we'll see where we are, and just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That's
it
right
came
here.
out to
Yep.
double. Uh,
Because it kept being like, but what about if we had this? But what about this case? There
yep.
we go.
Here it is, the Prismatic Ooze, a
Oh yeah.
level 17 creature. So, and then
Nice.
it has different attacks. It has the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and potent strike attack. So, eight different attacks, eight different vulnerabilities. So, yeah, it took up a lot of space.
The
But that is
Prismatic Ooze
also,
author is in the chat too.
And the game can
oh, hey,
oozes are generally an area that I feel has been underserved in Pathfinder. So I'll be excited to check that one out.
Nice.
what? Oozes? Oozes are everywhere in Pathfinder. I love oozes.
Oh, I'm saying that I feel like there's more that can be done with them than has been
Oh,
done.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
one's a cool one. This one's cool. This one's rare too. A rare ooze.
Nice.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's created by magic. Mm.
Is it
Yeah,
created
we
by those
had
prismatic spells like prismatic spray and all of those?
let's see. Well, there's not that much. When powerful mages experiment with magic, strange and terrible creations are the inevitable result.
Oh, there you go.
The prismatic
Remember,
Oh,
there
right. It
there
has one. It has one line.
everything had to get cut down in the flavor to get all the
yeah.
monster awesomeness.
There's a little bit more, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty
Nice.
much it.
Well,
That's
I'm looking
that's
forward to it. In
there's
fact,
not
I
much to
have a
it.
preview copy, so I can go look at it after this show.
Shh, it's not a preview copy, it's an editing copy. You need to work on it and make it better because
Okay,
it still hasn't been printed yet.
fair enough.
And it's true, we actually did have to edit it as little as yesterday.
Yeah,
Actually,
you were
we
you
added
told
to
them
it.
about how we added the
Mm-hmm.
haunts and
Hmm.
hazards in there.
It doesn't
Yeah.
count as a preview when you're doing like editing and revising and stuff like that. It's just like, here's where it's at. Let's work on it.
All right.
Hmm.
So
Is there any
yeah, I
more?
think
Let's
we've
see.
answered everybody's questions. I hope this like whets your appetite for now for what's coming with this
Oh,
Kickstarter.
oh,
There
would
and
rough amount. There's one question, real quick.
oh,
Rough amount of common, uncommon, and rare. There's actually a good amount of rare. It's about the same as you would pick. I'd have to look at the numbers, but there is one unique in the monster
Ooh,
manual,
super
in
cool.
the monster book, level 23. It's actually, I'm not gonna say it's my favorite monster. I'll just say it's one of my favorite
Nice.
monster. It is Smegvig, the paws monkey, and you know the monkey paw. Well, this is the monkey the paw came from.
That is
Ooh.
super
So
cool.
and he wants his paw back. So yeah, he's level 23 unique creature. You don't want to screw with him.
hmm So yeah, I mean, wait till you all hear what some of those other add-on products are, which you'll find out a little bit later because at least one of them is a thing that I've been wanting to do for a while that I think just would be a great product on its own. And I told Steven
Mhm.
about it. He's like, let's make it an add-on. So
Mhm.
you'll see when we get to that one.
Yeah, I already got artwork for it and
Yeah,
everything.
no, it's a great piece of art. I need to show it to Linda after the
I
episode.
think I showed it to her. I spoiled
Oh,
it.
okay. It's
I mean, he did
spoiler.
send it to me, and he's like, "Don't share this with anyone."
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
well, yeah, don't share it yet. But it's
Yep.
it's hot off the presses. It just came
It's
yesterday,
really
so
cool. All right.
it's really
So,
cool.
everyone, thanks for watching, and please support Battlezoo Bestiary if you're interested in it, and also other third-party products if you're interested in those. And until
Hmm.
next time on Saturday, stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.